So, Nick, let's talk about Epstein, because this has been bizarre the last 40 days, and I actually don't see interest in it subsiding. I don't think it's peaking like it was a few weeks ago, but this is a smoldering fire. What do you think's happening here?
Well, I think that when Congress comes back, they're going to be calling more attention to it. It does seem to be the case that the public has largely moved on. And we talked a little bit about this. It's like any news story. You give it a couple weeks, and no matter what it is, people are going to talk about something else. And with the internet, these things move very quickly. But that clip, it's almost like from a movie. It's almost like a parody. You have, and look, the guy is Jewish. You have a Jewish presenter on CNN saying, all-time low, 89% drop in interest in the Jeffrey Epstein cover-up. Trump did it again. He's a genius. He covered up the Epstein files. And it's like, is this real? Is this like an AI creation? Is this a Gemini creation? The idea that, you would show that to a Trump supporter 7 years ago, 8 years ago, it would almost be hard to believe that it's real, that that's a real clip. And you think about the way it was in 2016, it was like 9/11 every day. I mean, you remember, you were there, you had him on your show. You're like the veteran of 2016. In 2016, we were being punished every single day. They were apoplectic. It was like Trump getting elected was like the Holocaust. It was like they said the worst thing that happened to America since 9/11 or Pearl Harbor. And now it just feels like this cakewalk.
And that's the paradox is we've been through so much to support Trump. He's doing a lot of good. And you can say, well, this CNN guy, this is like bad satire. Like you said, when I saw it myself on another feed. I saw it on your feed a couple days ago. And I watched it like 3 times, and I'm like, this isn't even real. Does this guy even understand what he's saying? And this is supposedly a Trump supporter. He's a genius. Look at how his cover-up has worked. And I'm sitting there like I'm almost being involved in a conspiracy if I was a Trump supporter, which I am overall still. And I went, yeah, great. He's really done that. When he's the one that came out 40 days ago and said, shut up, you're not my supporter. I don't want your support. He didn't, he committed suicide and all this. It was so insulting. And then again, last week, he did it again, saying it's all a big hoax after he said, okay, release the information. I mean, this is just crazy. So what is Trump thinking? Here is one of the most bizarre clips ever from CNN a few days ago.
I would say that this is, from at least a political point of view, quickly turning into a dud of a story. What am I talking about here?
Which is wild.
Which is wild.
This has been for 3 weeks.
Exactly. Now. Take a look here. Google searches for Epstein down 89% versus just 3 weeks ago, falling through the floor. It is no longer the top term searched alongside Donald Trump's name. That's been trading off between Taros and Vladimir Putin, with obviously the meeting coming up later this week. But at this particular point, the American people's interest in this story, it's quickly becoming something of a nothing burger.
So out of sight, out of mind, maybe, is applying here a little bit. But has it impacted, have you seen numbers that have impacted Trump's popularity, favorability, anything?
No, not really. I mean, take a look here. Let's take a look at the overall numbers. Trump's approval rating in July of 2025, it was 45%. It's still well within that margin of error here at 44%. And you compare that to where he was in his first term at this point. He was at 37%. So he's 7 points higher, very much in a different political universe now, significantly higher in terms of his overall approval rating than he was at this point in his first term. And more than that, among Republicans, his approval rating is near a record high, hovering right at about that 90% mark. So no, he hasn't lost any of that base. And when it comes to that center of the electorate, he's basically holding on there. And his overall approval rating, 44%, is pretty gosh darn good for him, considering where he was at this point in term number 1.
What do you think is behind it? Why there hasn't been more movement?
Yeah, why hasn't there been more movement? I think this is pretty simple. Take a look here. Nation's top issue is the Epstein case. This is the number of respondents. This isn't the percentage of respondents. This is the number of respondents. In our last CNN poll, look at this. 0 respondents said that the Epstein case was the top issue. How about among independents? 0 independents said that. And among Republicans, and therefore overall, just a single one. So yes, there used to be a lot of interest in this story, but the bottom line is that even amongst those who had high interest in this story, it wasn't something that they thought was all that important. And as I said at the beginning, the interest in this story has fallen off the table.
Which also, when you look at this and you compare it to just the attention that Capitol Hill was giving it, Donald Trump supporters were giving it, congressional congressional committees were giving it. It is incongruous.
I would just say this. Donald Trump has some of the best political instincts of any politician I've seen. And on this particular issue, you see it full well and clear because he has been saying, you know what, this is not an issue. And it turns out that a lot of the American public actually seem to agree with him.
If you dream
wow, so Bill Clinton and Bill Gates, the head of Harvard, and all them admittedly with those kids and the prince over in the UK, just, this is great instincts. Let's just totally do a 180 and just shove about it. Then you ask what's coming next. And so I've seen you be critical of Elon, though he's done a great job on X with free speech overall. But I talked to people that were in the meetings. That was a real split. And he came out before all this happened 4 months ago, and said this Epstein thing's going to be a big deal. It's going to be covered up. And then I was told by people in the White House, yeah, it's because the CIA and Mossad are involved. They asked Trump to national security. But then why would he come out and Streisand affect all of this, Nick? Because this is wishful thinking. Anything big peaks and then subsides and then comes back as an even bigger wave. And it's not a prediction. It's a guarantee. The Republicans have already said, yeah, we want everything subpoenaed, including from the Democrats and the DOJ. So they're CNN hoping nothing to see here, like the Naked Gun, nothing to see here. That's not going to happen, Nick.
I love that guy's accent. I love the presenter's accent. It's very interesting. He's like celebrating. He's like, look, no one cares about Epstein with this like interesting little accent there. As far as
let's say this. I've seen the guy a lot. He's not normally that excited. He looks like he's having an orgasm here. He's like, I'm surprised he didn't spike a football.
He was spiking a dreidel, I think, so something like that. Spiking something that's a little on the nose. But what's interesting about the Elon connection, which is super important, and you brought this up because you're super perceptive on this stuff. Everybody forgets that Elon Musk brought this up back in June and said that Trump is not going to release the Epstein files because he's in them. And I wasn't the only one. You did, and I also said, I wasn't the only one that noticed that he also had a black eye when he said that. He's in the Oval Office for the last time with a giant black eye, which Trump even made a mention of. Trump said on Twitter, or he said it, I think, to the press, he said, I offered him makeup. He turned it down because he wanted everybody to see his black eye. So they're drawing attention to this. This was the last meeting. Now, shortly after the last meeting, as you said, it was a real split. And Elon puts out this tweet. It's like a nuclear bomb. Trump is in the files. What happens a week later? Israel starts a war with Iran. The war goes on for 2 weeks. The war ends. Netanyahu comes to the White House to celebrate on July 7th, 7/7. The day before, the DOJ pushes the memo burying the Epstein files. And so it's like this weird bookend. Now, there's some new information on this. There's this weird bookend where you have the Epstein scandal starts a week before the war. Or I suppose, they kind of spike this with Elon Musk's comment before the war. And then they initiate this next round of it when the DOJ buries it with the memo, when Netanyahu comes to the White House to finish the whole thing with their celebration about the Iran war. There was a piece in the Times of Israel last week where a rabbi in Israel said, and this is an unsubstantiated claim, but it is interesting. It was published in Israeli media. They said that the Israelis, of course, were not happy with Trump because Trump bombed Iran just once. He bombed Fordo, he bombed Natanz and Isfahan, and he did not destroy the stockpile of enriched uranium. Now, the Israelis expected that they could draw the United States in to hit Iran many times, to not just destroy one or some of the facilities and partially damage others, but that they would attack Iran's energy infrastructure, their conventional assets like their missile launch platforms, their government buildings, things like that. Israel was not happy that the United States did this limited strike and then called off the whole war.
Well,
restrained
Nick, I don't
Israel.
think that's speculation. I knew that from the White House insiders. Israel wanted full regime change. I mean, they called for it.
Absolutely. It was in Foreign Policy magazine just yesterday, and they were calling for it the whole time. And the point is, they were disappointed that Trump didn't deliver. They were mad that Trump did not do it. Now, there was this rabbi from the Times of Israel who said the reason the Epstein scandal happened is was a punishment against Trump for not taking it all the way. And you almost wonder, because of course, you know, the Epstein scandal, it does have a lot to do with Israel. Pam Bondi, who is the attorney general, she is a super Zionist. You know, that is something that was claimed without any evidence, but you almost wonder, is this being deployed as like a political football? Is this being deployed in a certain way to hurt the Trump administration? Because like you said, you have called a lot of attention to the strangeness of how it's being handled, how the White House has kind of been fumbling this, how they've really, it's almost like they're trying to make it worse for themselves. And so you wonder if there's some connection going on, because for me, all eyes are always on Iran. They want us to fight this war, a war that they know that we do not want to fight. Like, there's no public support for a protracted Middle Eastern conflict. Donald Trump himself has no appetite for such a war. And so it's like, how do you get America, with all these timelines in mind, the snapback sanctions, the midterms, Iran rearming themselves, the breakout timeline for a nuclear bomb, is like, how do you get America into a war quickly? And it happens coincidentally with this Epstein scandal. I can't shake the feeling that they're related in some way. Now, maybe that's crazy, but I feel like there's something to do with that. And then to see it in the Times of Israel reported over there, it was just a little bit too on the nose. It was a little freaky.
I mean, obviously, Israel wants us to go to full war with Iran. This was just phase one. Where do you see that going? And why do you, gut level, you make the joke, I say that, but it's true, think Trump did the perfect Streisand effect? He can't be that stupid. Why did he act like that?
I think he just made a mistake. I think if anybody fumbled it, it was the Department of Justice. I think that Trump, he hates it. You could tell. He's angry. Like, you could see it in his face. When Elon Musk put out that tweet, I think it was back in June or May, when Trump was asked about it at a luncheon about an hour later, you could read it. I mean, this guy does not have a poker face. He was livid. He was seething. And I think he still is. Every time it's brought up, like, he cannot handle this. So I don't think it's necessarily Trump that is Streisand affecting this. I think it might be the administration. It might be elements inside the government. I think that somebody spiked it and now they don't know how to deal with it. Or maybe Trump knows that there's something in there that's going to be problematic for him in some way. Obviously there is, because he ordered the FBI to look through the files. They told him that they found his name all over the files. We don't know what's in them. So it's hard to say exactly why, you know, the psychology of Trump, what's happening inside of his head. I think that's organic. I think that's just his real reaction. I think gut level, the big play is they want to go back into Iran. This has been reported widely. The clouds are gathering all over again. The snapback sanction deadline is at the end of August. I think Israel is going to go back into Iran. And I think they expect that the United States is going to come in heavy and it's going to be a major war. That's kind of where I see this going. And maybe getting rid of the Epstein.
I totally agree with you, Nick. So I got you on here to debate you on the police state martial law thing, but then I actually heard what you had to say. I overall agree with you. But that's all my intel. And I predicted this. I said they're going to say Melania it was a hooker for Epstein, which they already recycled 8 years ago. And they're going to put in the Jane Does that were fake. Trump got pissed because he'd already made a deal with the CIA and Mossad to just kind of shelve it. They still came back and stung him in the ass with it. He throws a fit about it because that's the deal he's got, which I'm not agreeing with that deal. People go, Jones agrees with Trump making that deal. Look, I've been read in on it, okay? Let's just say people close to the president. Because it's so many public officials, so much big stuff, it would bring down the stock market, he believes. I'm not saying that's the right way to go. I said they're going to stab me in the back. Then it turns out they put his wife in there. Now they admit it isn't true. Now she's going to sue him for $1 billion. Hunter Biden. You can see this. And again, folks, Trump's 79. He's very smart in many ways, has some good instincts, but he's super busy 20 hours a day. They just hand him stuff.